Hey everybody, we're going to get started in just a minute, but in the meantime, I'd love to know how many of you have come to one of these virtual happy hour events so far, see if anyone's actually come to all four at this point. So if you want to post in the little Zoom chat down there, you can go ahead and do that. I also wanted to let you know that at the end of this happy hour, we're going to do a little cheers for a successful Earth Week. So feel free to have your videos turned on and your beverage of choice on hand. Cool, thanks. Cool, we're gonna get going here. Sweet, well, welcome everyone to our fourth and final Earth Week virtual happy hour. We're so excited for you to join us and that we can engage with you on conservation issues, even with all this social distancing that we're doing. So a couple things. So we're going to be doing a Q&A at the end, so feel free to ask questions in the group chat. Feel free, so our issue today is actually going to be about the roadless rule, so you can ask questions about the roadless rule, but if you also had any general questions about Washington Wild, Washington, or conservation in the state of Washington, or Brewshed Alliance, feel free to ask. So kind of a little breakdown of how tonight's going to go. We're going to show a short video about the history of Washington Wild. Then we're going to show a couple videos from a couple of our Brewshed Alliance members / board members. They were unfortunately unable to join us, but made some great short videos for you all to watch. Then we're going to dig into the roadless forest issue. So we're going to hear from our executive director, Tom, watch a short video. And then we're going to hear from Rick Hegdahl, who is the Pacific Northwest director at the Vet Voice Foundation. And then we're going to hear from a couple more Washington Wild staff, and then we'll close out. So at the end, we're actually going to do a virtual cheers. So if everyone wants to have their beverage of choice on hand and turn on their video, we're going to do that right at the end of this happy hour. So we're going to get started and watch this Washington Wild video.
On a September evening in 1979, a handful of conservation activists met at the College Inn in Seattle's University District. Hours later, a new organization was born, Washington Wilderness Coalition.
So I've lived in Washington State for 30 years, and it is a diverse state in that it has the Pacific Ocean, mountains, rainforests, deserts, lakes, rivers. Washington Wild is a local organization that protects all of that for all of us. And that is why I'm a proud volunteer for the Washington Wild organization.
Today known as Washington Wild, over the past 40 years, the organization has led efforts to protect nearly 3 million acres of designated wilderness throughout Washington State.
I'm Yvonne Krause. I'm the Executive Director of the Evergreen Mountain Bike Alliance. We as mountain bikers have been working with Washington Wild on a very unique challenge of wanting to support wilderness and supporting that in Washington State, and at the same time losing access when we do so. So it's a unique challenge for us as mountain bikers. It's a very rare partnership with Washington Wild. We've been able to make that happen together, looking at wilderness boundaries, looking at trail alignments, looking at what gives us the best access for both mountain bikers and resource protection. It's very unique. It's been a very treasured partnership, and I look forward to that partnership for 40 more years.
Washington Wild brings people together in the vigorous defense of our remaining ancient forests, free-flowing rivers, wildlife habitat, and clean air and water.
My name is Brian Cladisby, chairman of the Swinomish tribe, and when Swinomish partnered with Washington Wild, we knew it was going to be a good fit to oppose this mining in the headwaters of the Skagit River, which is the only one in the lower 48 that still has every species of wild salmon still spawning in its tributaries. And in 7 generations, our kids need to be standing here telling the same story to those that need to know.
While much has changed over the past 40 years, our national parks, forests, and other public lands are under increasing threats from unregulated mining, new dam construction, and other development.
You must have good quality water to make good quality beer. Being a craft brewer, and a fairly small craft brewer compared to the big breweries, we're reliant on producing a quality, consistent product. So locally, we try and do a lot to keep our river clean and pure. And working with Washington Wild, it just helps to expand that throughout the state to keep our natural resources pure. And as a brewery, it's just so important.
Key to their success is building powerful grassroots networks and winning coalitions around protecting our public lands and wild places.
The mission of Washington Wild to make sure that we preserve low areas where families can have access and for salmon spawning is really critical over the coming 50 years, because that's the kind of wilderness that we will be able to use for generations to come. Washington Wild does a great job that's very unique. It brings together communities, different partnerships to be able to establish the road to get wilderness through Congress. It's not easy to pass legislation. You have to bring people in a community together, different organizations, bring together a whole coalition of people to get the kind of energy to get legislation through Congress. That's what Washington Wild does uniquely and very well.
Join me in supporting Washington Wild's leadership in protecting and defending our local wild lands and waters today and for the next 40 years.
Awesome. Hope you all enjoyed that. So before I show these 2 quick videos from our Brewshed Alliance members, I wanted to give a little bit of background on the program. So the Brewshed Alliance is a group of over 60 brewers, maltsters, hop growers, pubs, restaurants that all kind of come together over the idea that for good beer you need good water, and in order to have good water you need healthy ecosystems and waterways in our great state. So these Brewshed Alliance partners do a lot for us, holding fundraising events, doing educational events, signing on to comment letters to public officials, we've actually done many beer collaborations with them. So they're a really essential part of Washington Wild's work, and we're really lucky for them to join us. So I'm going to
Hi, my name is Ben.
And I'm Kelsey.
And we're owners of Watershed Pub and Kitchen in Seattle. The Watershed has been a proud Brewshed Alliance partner since 2014, and I've volunteered on Washington Wild's board of directors for almost 4 years. Although people all over the world are facing an historic crisis right now, it's nice to be able to take a moment to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Earth Day with you.
Earth Day! We understand that everyone's main priority right now is taking care of their health and their loved ones. It's been inspiring to see so many people looking for ways to support their community too. One way to support Washington Wild and the tireless work they do to protect our priceless wild lands and waters is to support their Brewshed Alliance partners. Here at the Watershed, you can check out our website and our social media pages to purchase gift cards, pre-order growlers for pickup on Saturdays, and keep up to date on our plans to reopen for takeout soon. Because pizza makes everything a little bit better, and if you're like us, a responsible amount of beer helps too.
As Washington Wild supporters, I'm guessing you're no strangers to voicing your opinions to elected officials. And along those lines, one easy and important thing you can do to help us and so many of our fellow Brewshed Alliance partners is to contact your federal legislators and urge them to provide rent relief for commercial and residential tenants. If we can freeze rent and mortgage payments during this pandemic, it will provide small businesses and landlords the relief they need to survive the crisis, and will also drastically reduce the need for financial assistance. Thank you for joining us and for supporting Washington Wild. And as we often say here at the pub, be excellent to each other and happy Earth Week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you all for joining our Earth Week Happy Hour tonight. My name is Raymond Kwan. I'm a current board member of Washington Wild and the co-founder of Lucky Envelope Brewing here in Seattle. The brewery has been a member of the Brewshed Alliance since the end of 2015. Under normal circumstances, the brewery would actually be celebrating its 5th anniversary next week. Obviously, that's probably not going to be happening, but there are still a few ways you can support the brewery during these challenging times. If you visit our website, luckyenvelopebrewing.com, you'll be able to place orders for pickup at our tasting room or for delivery to certain neighborhoods within this King County area. Thank you all for supporting Washington Wild and Lucky Envelope, and please stay safe.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad that we were able to, hear a message from a couple of our awesome board members and Brewshed Alliance members. So now I'm going to shoot it over to Tom, our executive director, to talk about Roadless.
All right. Can folks hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. So yeah, I'm Tom Uniak. I'm the executive director here at Washington Wild, and I've actually been at Washington Wild for 17 years. And the issue that we're going to talk about tonight, our roadless forest, is actually something that I've been defending ever since I've been here. So roadless forests, what are those? Those are like some of the best parts of our national forests that include our remaining old growth, forests that are left, and salmon spawning streams. They're also recreational opportunities where we raft and kayak and hike, just amazing places. They aren't always on maps, and so some of the hikes that you've been on, you've actually been been in a roadless area, but you may not know it. Is my video coming through?
No, we can't see you right now.
Okay, let me see what is. Oh, okay. All right.
There we go.
There we go. All right. So yeah. So the roadless rule was a really balanced regulatory proposal that in 2001 that was put forward, and it was part of probably at the time the largest federal rulemaking in the history of the federal government. We're talking about 600 public hearings around the country, 1.4 million comments in support, which was a humongous number back then. And really it's a balanced policy. What it does is it doesn't allow new road building in the few areas where there aren't roads. And this really came out of fiscal conservatives, where that doesn't make any economic sense. If we, why would we put new roads in the few areas that don't have them, right? When we can't pay for the roads that we already have, and that's a fact. There's an $8 billion backlog on national forest lands to pay for the road maintenance that we don't have money for. And so, but these roadless areas provide protections, because without roads, that basically means no logging. And so as a result, it's protected these old growth forests that are important for climate change, for sequestering carbon. They provide clean water. Many of our communities' municipal watersheds are actually in roadless areas, including Port Townsend, places like Everett and South Snohomish County, and even Bellingham. So roadless areas are really important because it's a regulation, it's an administrative protection, it's not legislative. And it's actually remarkably easy to undo it if the president and the White House doesn't value old growth forests and clean water and those types of things. And that's happened twice. Under the Bush administration, we had to defend the roadless rule twice. It was very difficult. Ultimately, it went to the courts, but we spent a bunch of time making sure that there was local support for roadless. And right now, we're also in one of those times where the current administration is actually trying to undo 9 million acres of roadless forest in Alaska's Tongass National Forest. And if they're successful there, you can bet that Washington and other states will be next. So this next video is from the Wilderness Society, which are national partners of ours. It's pretty short, but I think it does a really good job of just condensing why roadless areas are important and why we need to protect them. So Chris, if you want to roll that video, I might mention one more thing if I have a second. Our Senator Maria Cantwell has been really upfront and a great champion on this nationally. And so she has legislation that is in Congress that would make this legislative protection, not administrative, which would stop all this need to defend it every time we get a different president that doesn't agree. And the alert that is in the chat is an opportunity for you to support that with your members of Congress. So let's check out the video.
In our national forests, the threat of logging is always in the air, as corporate interests continue to fight to log in our roadless areas, which led us to the question, what exactly are roadless areas? Like most questions, we started on the internet. We found out the roadless areas are big, and they're all over. 58 million acres spread across 38 different states. And really, roadless areas are a pretty simple idea. In some parts of our national forests, a federal rule says that there can be no new roads. And no roads means these places stay wild.
Big swaths where we recreate and where we go explore are designated roadless areas, but not very many people know they're roadless areas. We think it's permanently protected, but that's not the case.
We decided to set off on a road trip to a roadless area in Utah, to get out from behind the computer and be there, on the ground, to figure out what these places really mean.
My goal as an athlete is to inspire people to get outside and to live a healthy, active lifestyle, and then to protect these places where we love to play.
I mean, I think the value of roadless areas and wild spaces and keeping things in their kind of natural wild state is really important for multiple generations.
I just want to inspire people to care more and to appreciate and understand the value that these places have in their unaltered natural state.
Without forests, we lose these big carbon sinks. They actually recapture carbon. And that's one thing we often don't think about when we're talking about climate change.
It's important that people understand nature so that they want to fight for its protection, and we can stand up for these places and species that don't have voices of their own.
So, to answer the question, what roadless areas are, it seems, are some of the last, best wild places in our national forests. In our national forests,
All right. Well, just real quick on that video, right now, the current administration is going to come out in the next month or two with a kind of final EIS to undo those Alaskan roadless areas. So stay tuned as we follow that. And I think, Chris, were we going to throw it to Evan to say a few words before our guest speaker? Or do we want to go to the guest speaker first?
We're going to go to the guest speaker first.
All right, we'll go ahead and throw it to, we have a guest speaker here who I've been able to work with. And one of the big things about our roadless support is that it's really diverse. You know, it's not just environmentalists like me talking about the environment, but it's about hunters and anglers and faith leaders and local businesses. And our next guest we're happy to have here is Rick Hegdahl. He is the Pacific Northwest Director of Vet Voice Foundation. And what they do is they represent veterans' voices. And a lot of what Rick does is talk about why protecting wild places matters to veterans. So with that, Rick, glad to have you here.
Thank you, Tom. Happy Earth Week to you all. Thank you, Tom, for inviting me to speak tonight and to toast you all for the work you're doing to preserve Washington's wild spaces. As Tom said, my name is Rick Hegdahl. I'm a retired Navy Iraq War veteran and now the Pacific Northwest Director for the Vet Voice Foundation. The Vet Voice Foundation mobilizes veterans to become leaders in our nation's democracy through participation in the civic process and the opportunity to continue serving their communities by finding a new mission in domestic and foreign policy campaigns. Those who serve our country fought to preserve American freedoms and lifestyles. Almost nothing better encapsulates these ideals than the wild spaces and ecologically rich lands that have changed little since our country's founding. The 2001 National Forest Roadless Rule protected nearly 60 million acres of our last remaining old growth forests, intact watersheds, and wild rivers. These are quintessential American landscapes. For many veterans who've returned from deployments marked by desperation and violent conflict, nature and wildlife can be a critical source of strength and healing. That's one reason why Vet Voice Foundation supports roadless area protections, whether they be in Alaska's Tongass National Forest or right here in Washington State. The ability to connect with our public lands like roadless areas is essential to the American experience and provide important values to veterans. Like so many Americans, veterans count on our national roadless areas for fishing, hiking, camping, and hunting. Some veterans turn to the outdoors to heal from the trauma of war and renew bonds with family members after long deployments. Protecting these lands is one way that America can give back to its heroes who have paid such a high price for our freedom. Our parents and grandparents made it possible for Americans to enjoy such a strong outdoor heritage. We must continue to protect our roadless forests so we can pass this heritage down to our children and grandchildren. That is a gift to future generations. Our veterans place a great deal of value in being outdoors, and they believe that we need to protect national forest roadless areas because they provide families with opportunities to be more active and enjoy the outdoors as an alternative to watching TV, playing video games, and spending time online, which I must say almost all of us are doing that right now. So in closing, and at some point we'll all be able to go out and enjoy these outdoor spaces. But in closing, please stay safe and healthy during this really unusual time in American history. And once again, I thank Tom for inviting me to spend a couple of minutes with you guys.
All right, Evan.
I had a little problem unmuting myself. I'm Evan. I'm the Director of Development here at Washington Wild. First of all, thank you so much, Rick, for joining us tonight. your service to our country, supporting our organization, as well as your dedication to conservation. Each evening, you know, when we have our guest voices, I think it really, you know, shows how important, you know, community network and really, you know, looking at conservation, you know, together as a team. And I think that we've shown this week that, you know, we're all in this together. And so many of us do really care about protecting our wild places here in Washington. And so it's been, I know, really inspiring for us as a staff, as well as hopefully everybody that has joined us this past week. I think this virtual happy hour, it's been really fun for us actually doing this. You know, we're so accustomed to having our events in person, and so having to kind of shift a little bit and doing this for the first time, we've actually you know, feel like we're able to connect with more people, you know, in a way. And for those of us who have been here for multiple nights, hopefully we've gotten better at this and not worse. You know, we've definitely missed you all though. And there's nothing like seeing each other in person and engaging, you know, together as a community. But, you know, after we've, you know, talked about these, you know, together as a team, we're actually hoping, you know, to do multiple online, you know, virtual kind of conservation meetings just throughout the year, because there's a lot of benefits to doing it this way. And we know that our Washington Wild community is extremely generous, you know, very adventurous, and inspiring to us as a staff. And so we're thankful that everybody was able to be here tonight, and hopefully you learned a little bit more about our work on defending our ancient roadless forests. So as many of you are aware, we have been around for over 40 years now, and not only that, we are just a team of 6. So I think that we're doing a really awesome job with all the campaigns that we're working on, and you know, that includes myself, Tom and Chris, also Hillary, who is our communications manager, and she's been putting all those great updates and links over on the side chat line. We also have Jordan and Kelly, who run our business finance as well as our administration responsibilities. And so we are a small yet mighty team, and we're really excited to continue our work. As we deliver this message to you from our homes and practicing our social distancing, hopefully this happy hour has inspired you as we look towards the future, getting back to our favorite places, sharing these wild lands and waters with our loved ones, and protecting them for future generations to come. I know me personally, I'm really looking forward to getting out on the adventures that my family has experienced out on Highway 2, as well as the Mountain Loop Highway. And usually at the end of May, we always like to get out on Highway 20 as soon as that's been opened. And so all those places are still there just waiting for us. And so it's great though that in the meantime we can come together as a group and just talk about how inspiring those places are to us. As a local environmental organization, we know our work is important to you, and it does need to be sustained. So regardless of what is happening right now, we're always going to be here to protect what we have and restore what we've lost. So we've set a goal this week in honor of the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. We are looking to bring on 50 donors to our organization this week. And right now we're about halfway to that goal, so there's still plenty of time to help us hit that. And it's not so much about the amount that you donate, it's just about bringing more supporters into our community. And as a reminder, we have a really awesome opportunity with a gift match of $2,500, thanks to our board as well as some major donors, which means that your gift this week will be doubled. So regardless of the amount, it automatically gets doubled as a donation to us. Before we move on, just real quick, I do want to thank a couple of our donors from yesterday and just share with you why they support Washington Wild. And one of our donors, Richard, who's been supporting us for many years and gives when he can multiple times throughout the year, he says, "I give because I value wild places, both the idea of them and the joy I get when I can experience them. The wild is in peril. Washington Wild serves a critical role in establishing and protecting these places nearest to me." We also have Chris. Chris has given us donations a couple times last year, and he continues to give this year. And he writes, "I love Washington Wild. Combining wilderness conservation and craft beer is basically 100% me. I'm happy to help support those two excellent missions. I'm a part-time landscape photographer, And Chris, we actually featured on the cover of our fall 2019 newsletter. And he met our organization at an art opening at Momentum Climbing Gym in Soto last year. That's where he learned about the organization, and he's been trying to attend Brewshed events and donate ever since. And lastly, Laura, who's a first-time donor. I heard about the event through a Facebook ad by Patagonia. Patagonia is an awesome supporter of Washington Wild. We're also a grantee of them. She says, I'm always interested in learning about and supporting wilderness and environmental groups and causes. I'm currently laid off like many people these days, but this has made me appreciate all the more the relative security I have, and I'm happy to be able to give what I can. So in the end, you know, if you are able to give, we would love to have your support, giving a gift that's meaningful to you. You can do that on our website at WAWILD, that's wawild.org. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Stay safe out there, and I will send it back to Chris.
Cool, thanks, Evan. So we're going to do a quick Q&A before wrapping this up with our Executive Director, Tom. So if you have any questions that you're dying to ask about roadless areas, Washington Wild, conservation, Brewshed, anything like that, feel free to drop them in the group chat. And then just a reminder that we're going to do a virtual toast once we're done with the Q&A. So if you want to turn on your videos and toast with us, we really appreciate it. To Tom, and then to start us off, I was going to ask Tom, what are the next steps to defend our roadless areas, both in Alaska and nationwide? Tom, you're muted.
Let's see, that do it?
Yeah, we got you.
Great. Nationwide, as I talked about, we're waiting to get this final EIS, which is bad news. Maybe in the next a couple days. All of us have obviously slowed down, but the trying to undo our roadless forest has not slowed down, and they're going to move forward with that. So stay tuned for an alert on that. We'll let folks know. In the meantime, nationally, including the 2 million acres in Washington State, I think really it's about the alert that we put in the chat that actually tries to codify this rule to make it a legislative protection. And so there is a bill in Congress right now by Senator Maria Cantwell that would actually do that, and showing support to your representatives and senators would be the best thing to do at this moment.
Cool. It looks like that is the only question we have right now. But if everyone wants to turn on their videos, and we can do a quick toast, I'll give everyone a second to join in. Does everyone have a beverage on hand? Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us on our first digital event series. We're so happy to have you. It's really great that we're able to engage, all of you conservation issues, that are important to us as Washingtonians. And cheers to 50 years of Earth Day and 50 more. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cool. Cheers.
Awesome. That's going to be it. Thank you all again for joining us. Yeah, we'll be back with more of these soon, I anticipate.